Our next speaker has traveled a great distance to be with us today. He comes to us from Princeton, New Jersey, a volunteer member, investigator with Centurion Ministries. Rich Hepburn has visited our state many times over the last 5, 6, 7 years or so. And Rich is with us to share some thoughts and his involvement in this case from the standpoint of Centurion Ministries. Please welcome Rich Hepburn.
Okay, thank you. As a matter of fact, I think I can vote in Poplar. I've been there so often. So, I'm a retired math teacher from Pennsylvania. I volunteered with Centurion Ministries in January of '99, and right after I got there, I was handed this case. Someone said to me, "Rich, take a look at this." A previous volunteer had been building a file on this case, and he kind of liked it. He thinks it's promising. Well, I took over the file and started communicating with Barry, and 3 things hit me. As the previous gentleman said, there was no evidence. This 17-year-old boy, not a master criminal, banged this girl, fractured her skull 20 times, created this scene of havoc and blood, and the scene was discovered in 4 hours, and there was not one little teeny bit of evidence that he was even there, and all kinds of evidence that other people were there. That was a red flag to me. Second, and again, it was mentioned previously, he confessed in January of '83. His suppression hearing was in February of '84, and 1 week before the suppression hearing, the tape was erased. But the clincher for me was a memo that Sheriff Malum sent to Jay Vi that listed the 9 things the killer would know in preparing Vi to conduct this interview. 9 things the killer would know. Barry was wrong on 8 of them. That's a red flag. The confession didn't fit the facts at all. So one thing led to another, and Jim asked if I would go out on this case, and I did, and I've been there many times. And the frustration there is that even though I've met many friends out there, people of all walks of life, upper class, lower class, Indians, non-Indians, who have befriended me, who tell me things, tell me where people live and who they're related to and how to find them, where they work, call me with tips, sometimes at home. Good people. The frustration is that the suspects and some of the other people, very important, whose names haven't even come up, that are really important to this investigation, refuse to talk to me. A couple of the suspects talks to me initially, but then when you go back to them and say, well, wait a minute, you said this, but 20 years ago you said that, what's the story here? As soon as you start that kind of questioning, they cut me off. And I'm going to now talk to you a little about, this leads into what I'm going to say next, your tax dollars at work. I was thrilled when, before the hearing last spring, the Attorney General sent 3 people to Roosevelt County to conduct interviews. Mike Wellenstein, Tammy Plubell, 2 attorneys, and Ward McKay, an experienced investigators. And I thought, great. If they talk to these people, they can get the truth. You can question suspects and throw their inconsistencies at them and get to the truth. Well, I was wrong. They never tried. They never tried to get to the truth. They tried to build their case, and I'll give you some examples. The Jackson sisters told the investigators they had an 11 p.m. curfew. Everyone I've ever talked to in Poplar can't even say that with a straight face, but they had 11 o'clock curfew, and they honored it that night. Well, they gave statements to the FBI right after the murder, didn't say anything about a curfew. In fact, Joanne testified at trial that she was home at 12:30. That's a lie, but it's a different lie. And that's the kind of thing, if you interrogate someone, you question with them. As soon as you pin them down and get them panicky, and they might start talking. They never, ever challenged those people on the curfew business. Further evidence of that, Sissy Atkinson told the investigators at the time of the trial, she saw Kim's truck going up Main Street. None of the other girls said that, with a man chasing it. When the Attorney General came, Roberta Jackson said that. Not only did she say she saw Kim Neese's truck, Kim Neese was driving. It wasn't Pam, it was Kim Neese was driving. All right, Kim was in the drive-in until 11:45. We have dozens of people that will testify the truth of that. She was at the drive-in theater till 11:30 or quarter to 12. Roberta Jackson saw her driving up Main Street an hour after Roberta Jackson went to bed. You can throw that at people if you're an interrogator, if you're a questioner, and shake them a little bit. They never even tried. The four gave different accounts of how they were dropped off. Example, Maud lost track. At 11 o'clock, they went to the Buckhorn Bar to get some beer, and Maud lost track of Sissy, never saw her again the rest of the night. Sissy, Maud dropped her off. Joanne, Maud dropped her and her sister off, and Sissy and another girl named Rose were still in the car. And these are inconsistencies. It's hard to remember the truth after all this time, but it's much, much harder to remember lies. And those people lied. A young man named Caleb Gorno, the day after the murder, quote, found jewelry belonging to Kim by the crime scene. The FBI and their report were skeptical about that. They found it in an area that was thoroughly searched. Caleb told us he found it a week later. He told Dateline, or not Dateline, I'm sorry, he told the AG's people it was 3 months later, 4 months later, during hunting season. Again, he didn't find jewelry, someone gave it to him. That was a lie, but no one is hammering him on those lies. Maud told the investigator she's the only one that wasn't home at 11 o'clock. Maud hooked up with 3 people and they went north of Poplar for some wine drinking and making out or whatever young people do late at night, I forget. But the young man that she hooked up with now is a businessman in Dickinson, South Dakota, a friend of Denver Atkinson's who was in town, and what took a shine to him, and she spent the time with them. I've called that man. I've called him 3 times. He was not with Ward Greyhawk that night, or ever. Now, did the state attorney general people check her alibi? Did they call him, find out if he was with Ward? No, they did not. However, when they interviewed Carl Forstars, a witness favorable to Barry Beach, who heard something that Sissy said, they not only grilled him very, very hard, they even found 2 witnesses to impeach him, to rebut his testimony, and brought one of them to Deer Lodge to testify. They took great pains to challenge every sentence that Carl Forstars said. They took no effort to challenge anything the young lady said. And I could go on, and really, I'm just skimming the surface because I have this time constraint. However, I'll close by saying 2 things. One is, I thought that they would treat these young people, with all the information they got from our petition, they would treat these young people as suspects. They treated them as victims. There's only 2 victims here, Barry Beach and Kim Neese, not those young ladies up on the reservation. They're not victims, but they were treated by victims. You poor girls being accused by these terrible people from the East. And you might think I'm exaggerating, but if any member, I have 2 extra copies of the complete transcript of those interviews that the Attorney General's people conducted up there. I'd be willing to give them to any member of the press, any member of the legislature, because if you think for 1 minute that those people in that office are after the truth, read this, please. Publish it. Do anything you want with it, because it was a fraud and a disgrace. And I thank you all for coming, and I thank you for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich.